young men have increased their support of the Republican Party from 35% to 48%, a 13 percentage point increase in just 7 years. And this is a new trend. While 2020 exit polls show that young men backed Biden by 15%.
We are literally the fucking last political space online that is a holdout, that is majority men, that isn't like insanely fucked politically. It's not even a joke. All of that fucking red pill content has created this like insane vacuum, dude. Andrew Tate, hustle culture, PUA, all this red pill shit, manosphere. It's really fucked up. Gender wars on TikTok don't help either.
Percentage points. A February 2024 Wall Street Journal poll found they favored Trump by 14 percentage points. And this loss of young male voters is a major issue for the Democratic Party going into November. The question now, can Kamala Harris bring some back? Here's what's driving young men to support Republicans and what it could mean for the presidential election to come.
America great again.
When we ask young voters, what issue is most important to you?
I'm not gonna lie, I also think men are getting dumber. And it's genuinely terrifying. Young men are so predisposed to like right-wing radicalization. We're getting dumber, bro. We are. Worse educational outcomes overall, like year over year. It's actually getting worse. Hasan speaking French. Bro, when I say we, I'm a man, okay? And at a certain point, I was a young man, okay? This isn't how I like was born into the planet. I don't know if you know this.
To cast a vote. Among young men, it's the economy. Among young women, it's abortion.
17% of men say the economy is the most important issue, followed by democracy and immigration. Whereas for young women, the top issue is abortion, by a lot.
Why is this happening? Well, we put the reasons into two different buckets. The life experiences that young men and young women are having, those life experiences are diverging.
Young men without a college degree have seen the greatest decline in labor force participation.
Yeah, see, they're literally saying what I was talking about. Like, this is a major issue. This is a major problem.
Meanwhile, a record 87% of college-educated women are in the workforce. And today, women make up 60% of college graduates.
This division that we're seeing between young men and young women, it goes beyond who they're going to vote for Congress or president. It goes to a range of policy issues. So then let's look at what the government is offering. The Biden administration has moved to forgive federally funded student loans. That affects young women more than young men.
During the 2019-2020 school year, 49% of female undergraduate students took out loans, compared to only 42% of male undergraduates. And 66% of all student debt is carried by women.
The young women favored forgiving.
That's because they're going to school at higher rates. Like, that's it. You just showed the previous graph that literally tells you why 66% women taking the fucking student loans. They're the ones who are actually going and pursuing higher education when men are not. The party differences have basically become firm on rural versus urban divide in terms of where people are. And the other divide is college education versus high school education.
Student loans by 45 percentage points. The young men were about equally divided. I mean, that's a big difference.
Meanwhile, young men support extending Trump's tax cuts by 23 percentage points, which cut the corporate tax rate and reduced some individual income tax.
There's nothing funnier than being under the age of 35, being like, I worry about the economy, and then advocating for tax cuts for corporations at the top marginal tax rate. It's like, dude, you are so fucking stupid, dude. You are like, what are you? You are the biggest, most gullible moron on the planet. They are running your pockets, dumbass. What are you saying? Like, you think that shit helps you, dude? You think that touches you? The only capital you own is a busted ass Honda Civic that your older brother handed down to you. You can't even avoid the top of the hour ad breaks. You ain't got $6 in your pocket to subscribe.
And now, because of our tax cuts, you can keep more of your hard-earned money.
You're at the Democrat.
But women oppose the proposed extension by 20 percentage points, a full 43-point difference.
That's data that goes.
Like, extending Trump's tax cuts is so funny. You get $5 in your pocket, and all of the tax cuts that were made permanent are for corporations at the top marginal tax rate, you know? These motherfuckers are like advocating for their own demise.
It's like this. Young men headed in one direction and young women in the other. That's a big difference. Data does not usually segment young voters that remarkably. This is something new.
Which brings us back to this chart. 22% of young female voters say abortion is their #1 issue in this election, a key aspect of Harris's campaign.
We trust women to make decisions about their own body.
Only 3% of young male voters said the same. And young men and women stacked up differently on other issues as well. With immigration, Trump's policies are much more likely to be supported by men than women. Men support deploying troops at the border by 10 percentage points, whereas women oppose this policy by 15 points.
Bro, who do you think is going to get deployed? Oh my God, these people are so... This is what I mean, dog. This is what I mean. 18 to 29, net share in support, 10% for deploying troops in support of Trump's border policies. Like, build the wall, by the way, is unpopular among young men. Detain and deport is unpopular among young men. But they want to deploy troops, like across the board, for everyone under the age of 18 and 29. Both building the wall and detaining and deporting are unpopular. Much more unpopular for women, but still unpopular for men as well. Just remember that. Real cool that the Democratic Party is going on at least one of those, where with the right-wing border wall bill that they're presenting as though it's bipartisan.
And when it comes to building the wall, one of Trump's key immigration policies, men are only slightly leaning towards opposition, but women overwhelmingly oppose it. These gaps are hard to explain just by differences in lived experience, which brings us to the second thing that explains the gap between young men and women.
What are the candidates and what are the parties saying to young voters? Donald Trump and the Republican Party are putting out a lot of messages expressly intended to appeal to young men. Donald Trump has gone to Ultimate Fighting Championship matches. He recently appeared on the podcast of Logan Paul. He went to a sneaker convention to sell his own brand of sneakers.
We got to get young people out to vote.
These are audiences that are overwhelmingly male and overwhelmingly filled with young men. And it's a way that Donald Trump and his campaign have been saying, hey, young men, I'm with you. I'm on the same page as you. I understand you.
Meanwhile,
A lot of the messaging from the Democratic Party has been towards issues that are more salient for women.
When I am President of the United States, I will sign into law the protections for reproductive freedom.
so what does this mean for November? Young women historically vote at higher rates than young men. But experts say that with a tight election, the Democratic Party will need to draw in as many votes as possible. The next challenge for the Republican Party will be figuring out how to turn these young male supporters.
Kids are into Trump because of streamers and podcasts, not fucking sneakers. No, I think kids are into Trump because they're not even directly into Trump, but they're getting beamed an unlimited amount of right-wing sentiment from all the podcasters and streamers, PUA space, all this fucking stupid shit. I think that's what it is. They're coming of age under the Biden administration. Understandably, the culture war dictates that there is going to be a pendulum swing in the other direction, just like there was one under the Trump administration, where a lot of the youth, many of you, when you were young, were super fucking libbed up, okay? And radicalizing during COVID. Now, many of you are no longer young. You grew up in that 4, 5, 6, 8 year time frame. A lot of young men are just developing this kind of sentiment in the fucking insane algorithms that they have, where every outlet, like whether it be financial advice, whether it be dating advice, whether it be fucking fitness advice, every single type of like interest that young people have, young men have specifically, is like overtly and unimaginably right wing. It's like dominated by right wing forces. The irony, of course, is that like I'm interested in a lot of those things as well. And I present myself in the way that I do, but you know, I get belittled by a lot of like super insecure men on the red pill side who say I'm gay as though it's like a bad thing to be gay. But automatically, if you're like an insecure teenager, insecure about your own sexuality, you do think it's a bad thing. You know what I mean? It's just like, there's not really much you can do. Barstool conservatism. Yeah. Legitimately think though that the reason for why this is happening is because of Andrew Tate style content creators in general. It's crazy. Like every fucking aspect of Gen Z existence for men specifically is dominated by right-wing charlatans.